Hello, my name is Leslie Parker, student number 00501051192, and this is my EDC1200 assignment 2 multimedia presentation on disability. I've chosen the subject of disability having researched a story that evolved late October 2005 involving a young lady called Sarah Garvin, aged 15, and her dog Satan. Sarah actually suffers from Down syndrome and some problems with quite a serious rheumatoid arthritic condition. Which means that her parents argued the fact that she required the help and assistance of her dog within the school environment for her everyday activities. This actually created an awful lot of controversy within the local community, who felt that this was not an acceptable situation. So what about disability within a community? Well, as with any group that seem to be different than normal, there are preconceived notions, and many of these notions lead to discrimination and or exclusion. So changing these notions can benefit society as a whole as well as a group, and as educators we can help improve these notions. So let's talk about disability and ways in which we can learn to be more tolerant to those who may be considered different to ourselves. As a child or an adult, if it's painful and damaging to feel that you're in some way disrespected by others, whether this is due to how you look, what you believe in, or who your family and community are. See, diversity is not just about differences between groups and individuals, but it's actually about identity, about who am I, who is like me, or where do I belong and what can I do. So the children need to learn about their backgrounds, learn about the backgrounds of those who are different to themselves and how these backgrounds are different. They need to see themselves, their families, their communities represented around them, and develop self-esteem and identity. They need to feel good about themselves, their families and their communities, and be continually exposed to activities and material on concrete experiences that destroy stereotypes. So the label of disability comes with issues of stereotyping, conformity, stigmas and altruism, and is defined in a multitude of ways. And this all leads us to a special question: am I special? So what does it mean to be special? We can ask children this, ask them when they actually feel more or less special, when and why. How do they look when they feel special? What are their facial expressions? Are they smiley? Are they sad? How can you make someone else feel special? So through curricula, parenting programs, books, songs and television, we can begin to celebrate diversity in a unique and creative way. Well, we must stress to each child that we're all different yet the same, and regardless of perceived abilities, one can find strengths in each and every one of us. So when we look at disability, we need to raise awareness. So what is a disability? Well, it's any physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life experiences. And such impairments can include physical, sensory, cognitive and intellectual, and they can occur during a lifetime, or it may even be present from birth. During my own research, I was lucky enough to come across a young man called Tony Riles. Tony Riles is an artist born in 1959, and these are some of his wonderful paintings. Tony is special, however. Tony was born with a condition called arthrogryposis, which rendered his limbs practically useless. So he started to use his talent of painting by using a paintbrush in his mouth. And he has some wonderful, wonderful life statements and beliefs. He likes to believe that disability is actually diffability, with this being a very negative start to a word. So he believes we all have diffability, meaning different abilities, and this is a great statement, and I hope you'll spend some time looking at his paintings. So how can we teach this within a classroom? Well, how about with simple cola? We can take these colas and we can ask, does the label on all of these bottles actually make a difference to what's actually inside? Does the different recipe or the slight taste difference actually make this drink any less enjoyable or less able to quench our thirst? And how? So this exercise can actually be extended using cans of food where you take off the label. And there are many other ways that we can use disability, difference and diversity within the classroom. How about speech impediments? Ask the children to sit in a circle and tell a story by you starting a sentence such as Sarah went to the bus stop, and asking each child to add a sentence to the story. Once you've done one round, then ask them to do it again without using their sound R or R. So this will give them some kind of preconceived idea of what it's like, how awkward, how frustrating, how embarrassing it is not to be able to pronounce your words correctly in front of a group of people. Perhaps we can ask them to take their thumb and their finger together and try and tie their shoelaces, or to write their names by using the reflection only from a mirror, which will help them with learning disability understandings. So there are many ways that we can look at disability within the classroom, perhaps even asking if we could borrow a wheelchair from a local community centre, shopping mall or hospital, and asking the children whilst they're being pushed around whether they feel different. Do people treat them the same way? Can they still do what they used to be able to do and what their peers can do? Do people change the tone of their voice? You know, how do they actually feel not being able to walk and being at a lower level to everybody else? Well, difference and diversity cannot be taught directly. It's not part of the curriculum, it's not lesson plans, and it's certainly not people wearing fancy dress costumes. I've actually sourced several books which are very useful when teaching difference and diversity, especially through disability situations within the classroom. You might like to freeze the presentation and make a note of these for your own future use, and the same can be said for these films. I thank you for your time in listening to my presentation and hope that it's made some sense to you. I wish you all the very best with your own personal development. Thank you.